If you with it, drop it.
Hi guys, it's your girl Mantate. Welcome to another week of the Mantate Show. So as I always say, like all the conversations that I have with you guys, and I think it's always such an odd thing for me to say because I'll be saying conversation and this time I'm the one talking, but I regard this as conversations because I think the idea for me is as I give my thoughts out loud to you, I hope that you can engage with them. I hope they get you thinking about, different things, but I also hope that it just gets you talking, whether it's in the comments or just talking with your own people. I think for me, that's where the conversation comes in. It's not always like just the conversations I'm having here, but also like what this kind of reflections can do for you and with you in your different spaces. So yeah, it's another exciting episode. I'm always happy to bring the vibe and the looks as usual. But yeah, today I wanted to talk about something that is, I think, extremely important. People do it differently, and that's why I want to have a conversation about it and kind of reflect on how I've approached it over the years, but also kind of just get us in a space where we realize that things work differently for different people. But what's more important is just having this in mind as we go about our different years, months, and decades, right? So today we're talking about vision boards. Yeah, I think everyone has had this word. If you haven't, that's a good thing. After this, you're gonna have had a little bit of more information about it. But vision boards are such an important thing, and people do them differently. I think when you say vision board, the first thing that someone thinks about is, that gorgeous collage of pictures and words and all those things that people normally have that looks so gorgeous. Some people have it as a wallpaper on their phone, their computer. Someone has it, in their house, pasted on the wall. Someone else has it somewhere in a magazine, like in a book somewhere. I mean, it can be in a different place, in a different location, just where you're able to see it, because the point of it is to consistently reference and see where you're at and where you're trying to go as a way of motivating yourself, right? So I think our general idea of vision board kind of, exists in that way. But I'm also here to just tell you that it doesn't always look that way. Sometimes, vision boards don't have to be like a physical thing. That's my thing. I don't think that it always has to be like a physical thing. One of the things that I think about when I say it's not always supposed to be a physical thing is because there are people that live in spaces that are shared, right? So you don't own that space, and sometimes people want their vision boards to be private. Sometimes people don't want kids just accessing their vision boards or just anybody playing with it, because that's such a powerful thing that you've developed for yourself and you want to protect it in a way. So I think that's why I always think about it that way, to say moving away from just thinking about vision boards as this physical thing. Within the conversation of it not being physical, there are different ways, it can exist. For some people, it could just be like, okay, a mental picture. It's words you've written down, but you've got a visual of it in your head. So words written down, there is something somewhere, but the visual aspect of it is in your head. And I think that's still also okay, because I think not everybody is like a visual person. Not everybody is about those, pictures and words and things like that. People just want to write things down and it's still a vision, right? So I think the concept of a board, is something that you paste things on, is actually a great concept. But I think when you start thinking about a vision board as a structure or some place where you can reference the journey and see where you're going, where you're coming from, what you're trying to do with your life and things like that. So I think in that way, we can think about it as something that we paste things on in a physical sense, but also something that we can, write down and then visually picture. Yeah, visually picture is such a very interesting way of putting it, but I think it's just, in my head, that's also okay. I think what I'm trying to get at is people have different ways of, visualizing their life, and visualizing is not always pictures. I'm actually thinking right this moment that, pictures, pictures are not the only thing, right? But music can also be another way of doing your vision board. I've never thought about this, but I think it could work. There are different types of songs, right, that speak to you in different ways. It could be that, the song speaking to the journey you're on, that you're trying to be on, the mindset you're trying to have, right? Or the commitment you're trying to, have. But also it could be that it's songs by people whose life, you kind of like are inspired by, you're trying to emulate and things like that. So I think music can be that. So I think when we start thinking about vision boards outside of the traditional way of doing them, it might be an exciting thing to do. We can do them differently, do them based on the things that we like to do. That way I think it becomes more fun to do it, but also it becomes a space that you can consistently be in because it's something that you love doing. But outside of this, but I also think Guti, another place that's great for just vision boards are like the digital version of like the physical board, right? Some people just use like different apps to do it. You can use like I think you can use like Word, Microsoft Word, if you don't have like other softwares that you can use. You can actually use Word document. I think Word document gives you a lot of flexibility. So you can use Word document to put together a vision board. You can also use Canva if you have it, and any other similar software that you have access to, because I think ultimately it's about what we have access to. And I always think that when we think about it from a place of you don't need to pay for a software in order to create a great vision board, it helps you to begin to not give excuses for not having one. I think you can also just use PowerPoint. I think PowerPoint is a great place to also think about, you know, creating a nice looking visual. It doesn't have to be all like the different slides. It could just be one gorgeous slide and then you find ways of playing about it. I think that's another way of thinking about it. So you can actually have like a digital kinda, and then some people use it as a wallpaper on their computer, which is nice because you're constantly seeing that. And then some people just, you know, keep it somewhere and then they go and refer to it, or they keep it on their phone. People just put it in different places. So you can use yours in any other way. And I think the point I've been driving is it doesn't have to look a certain way. So if you see someone's vision board and you like it, that's dope. You can copy that. If it's your friend, try not to copy word for word or picture for picture, because I'm like, that's a little bit weird, right? But just getting some inspiration from it to just, you know, look at what you can do with your own. So I think it was a good place to start to kind of think about what a vision board can look like, and also just the creative, you know, boundaries that you can, you know, have for, you know, what you do and what you create. So having said this, I'm not going to get into kind of like the content of, you know, vision boards. So I wanted to start with like a significant moment in my life. I've been, you know, familiar with vision boards, been doing them in different forms in different moments in my life. But there was one session that I had in 2016 that really kind of is a particular moment for me. So if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll actually see it. It's one of those old videos that I keep up there because I use it as a reference. I posted it, I think, in 2016, and I still have it there. So if you go there, you'll see a younger me, which is very exciting, you know, because I think one of the ways that I always think about it is my dreadlocks were so short. I was literally starting out my dreadlocks journey. I think I was like, yeah, it was the month that I actually had my dreadlocks. So that's how young I was. So this was me in an event that was organized by a women's organization, and I was just there it was like a celebration of the International Day of the Girl Child. And we were doing vision boards, so it was a good number of us girlies. We didn't know each other, you know, we knew a couple of people, but most of us didn't know each other. And I really love that space because it created a lot of sisterhoods, you know, a lot of the friends that I got to have, you know, that go far back. I like the girls I met there. By far back, I'm like 8 years later, you know, we're here still building. 9 years later, we're here still building. So I'm really grateful for that moment because it gave me a lot of friends. But one of the other things that's very important about that moment is we actually got to do like an exercise, you know. We created vision boards in that event. So what they did was they bought counter books, right? So they got us this nice counter books, and then they asked us to use the center page. This is something that you can do as well. So they got us to use the center page of a book, right? And then they had like magazines, newspapers, then they had Clue, they had Scissors, they had different things, really. And the idea of it was go through these magazines, go through these newspapers, go through all these different things. And then if you find words that speak to you that you want on your vision board, cut that out and then paste it on your, you know, center page. If you find pictures that speak into where you're trying to go, or that kind of like visualize the vision that you have for yourself, just cut them out and then paste them on the center page. And then we did that, which is fun to do because we're all going through different, you know, magazines and newspapers. And I think the fun part was just being able to see how there's so many of us in the room, but we're able to still all have our vision boards, which is a reminder that, you know, the world is big enough for all our dreams. So you don't have to be fighting for space in the world because there is space for all of us. So we then got to do this, right? And then at the end, a number of us that were courageous then stood up to kind of share feedback on the process, but also to share our vision boards. And I stood up on the day. I'm one of those people, I think, if you know me, you know by now, like I don't shy away from an opportunity to tell my story. or to speak into the journey that I want to be on. So a couple of us then stood up and then we started talking about the vision board. So in the way that we're talking about it, we were basically unpacking for people the thinking that we had behind, you know, what we had created. We were talking to people about the pictures that were in our center page, the words we chose, you know, all of those different things, and just it's like you're telling them the dream and the bigger picture, just using all of this. Because when someone looks at your vision board, they're like, oh, okay. But if they're just seeing like pictures of people and pictures of different things, they can't piece it together, right? But if you're able to just connect all of that and share it with them, it's such a powerful thing. And I think also it's such a biblical thing as well, because one of the things that's really powerful in the Bible is just the reminder that, you know, we need to write the vision down so that Abantu, my Ndebele just jumped in, but by now you all should know my Ndebele, right? But basically it's like write the vision down so that those that read it can run with it. So I kind of approach it from the same place that if you're able to clearly, you know, pull out your vision in a nice visual and a nice vision board, and be able to articulate that vision, it becomes easier for people to see where they fit in your life and where they don't fit. It does allow you to get people that will really fit into your journey, support you, or people that will remember, like if there's something going on and they know that something in your vision board or something that you're passionate about, they're able to say, oh, Mantate is actually passionate about this. Let me just let her know there's this opportunity. So I think that's the power of kind of like sharing our stories, and why I never shy away from, you know, the opportunity to share my story. So we shared and we talked about what we're trying to do, and I'm smiling right now because like every time I look at that video, I'm like, girl, I love how on point you were. Because when I look at the video now, when I listen to it, almost everything I promised to do, I've actually been able to do. And actually I've done more things than I actually planned to do, which is the point and beauty of it. So I think I also recognize as well that it is not always the case that people set out to do certain things and then they get them just that way or even better. But I think I'm always so grateful for the opportunity that I've had to have been able to spell out that vision so clearly, and then be able to see it almost, you know, this is like 9 years later. It'll be 9 years next month. So 9 years later, and be able to see like I've been on this journey and I've actually fulfilled the commitments that I made to myself. And I think it's one of the things that then reminds us that vision boards can act as, you know, accountability tools. It's things that you use to remind yourself, like, did you do this? You said you're going to do this. Did you do it? But also in sharing it with other people that are closest to us, or people that met around us, people that we meet that are useful to know our vision. It does create people that become accountability partners, people that will ask you, you said you want to do this, how's that going? You said you're passionate about this, how are you doing in that direction? So those kind of questions come because there's clarity, right? So for me, I just look back and I'm like, that girl that I was, oh my God, that girl spoke into her life, and I'm really proud of her. And I want to always be that girl. I want to always be the girl that just claims the future that I want and be able to walk into it. And I also want to recognize when I've had the opportunity and the grace to just, you know, grow into those different things that I've always wanted to be, and, you know, just be able to live that vision. So I think thinking about it this way is very important, because I think when you recognize that life can happen the way you want, but also life doesn't always happen that way, right? There are certain things that I like set out to do and like it happened exactly that way, and then there are certain things that happen in a better way, you know, like God's like, I'm gonna just give you a little more because you deserve it. I'm like, ah. So I feel like, you know, God's been a little bit extra with me, and I'm really grateful for that. So I recognize within this space that it's not always the case that when you set out to do certain things happen the way that you want them to. And I think that's why it's important for us to recognize that, you know, the idea of vision boards is to not make them this fixed thing, like if I don't become this, I have failed. I don't really think about vision boards that way, because I feel like life is, you know, life is very unpredictable, right? We can plan and everything, but life does not always give us the space and the grace to live the way that we map ourselves out. So I think that's just giving yourself the grace, you know, to be okay with moments in your life that don't give you what you're looking for, but still being cognizant of the bigger picture still remains the same. And I think also just being bold enough to be like, was this the actual vision, or was this what I thought was the vision when I did this? Is there something different that, you know, allows me to expand in a different direction? What that means is you can change, you know, where you're going, but you're not changing who you are. You're not changing the ambition that you have. You're not changing, like the person that you are, the things you're passionate about. So it's like you're staying true to your purpose, but you're just changing what you thought was, the end goal. For instance, if you decide, my master's is the goal, or I want to study at this particular school, or I want to do ABCD, and then you actually do that, and then so when you do that, then what is that the end? So it's thinking about, the end goal as almost like a moment, like, okay, this is where I'm pushing myself, but if there is a beyond that, then that's also okay. But also it's just recognizing that even if I get to that point and I feel like there's no something beyond it, I do feel like sometimes it's okay, because we then kind of fall into this trap of consistently being in, milestone mode. Like, okay, now I'm here, what's coming next? So I think that's the beautiful thing about vision boards, the fact that they're not set in stone. You can edit. And that's why when I started, I was telling you guys that do not necessarily have your vision board as a physical thing. I mean, you can still do that because you can change things, right? But I think what's important with like an editable one is you then recognize it as a living document. So a living document allows you to make changes. You might be saying, I want to do ABCD. Maybe you change and say, I don't want to do ABCD. So I think about it like that. It's a living document, something that changes based on, circumstances, changes in the way that you think, growth in different ways that can allow you to just, expand yourself in different ways. Because I think it's still growth. Change is growth. And I think a lot of people, suffer from this idea that if I don't do things ABC, then it means that I've failed. I don't think that's failure. Growth is failure. Just being able to move towards where you're trying to go, that's growth. And sometimes it might not look like, this is how I wanted it to go. But I think if you're seeing yourself put in the work and you're seeing yourself, become a certain person, think differently, be better and different every day, I think that's enough. Growth looks different for everybody. And so I think that's very important. And I also think that there's a very big conversation about consistency. Consistency in who you are and where you're going means that the principles are similar. The ambition is similar. The hard workiness is similar. The way that you show up every day is similar. So I think what's important with vision boards is you can have an amazing vision board, that looks amazing on, on pictures, but it's not enough to have an amazing visual. It's not enough to have this gorgeous, frame that you've created. I think what's important is how you show up every day to honor that vision board. I think what's important is how you recognize the moments of learning. I have a friend of mine that always, calls them teachable moments. He's always asking, okay, what is the teachable moment here? And I think that's very important. So at every stage in your life, as you look at your vision board, just try to ask yourself, okay, I'm here. I was here 6 months ago. What is like, the teachable moment for me, and how can I use that to kind of just, move forward? And then the other thing that's very exciting to think about as you think about, a vision board is how, we change. So change is such a beautiful thing. So for instance, today, if I make a vision board based on where I am, and then next week is too soon, but let's just say in 2 years, I live in a different continent, right? So I live in a different continent and I live with a different set of people. I'm at a different stage in my life. What that means is the person that I am in that moment may not be the person, actually definitely will not be the person that I am now. So the idea of consistency is there is you changing, evolving. So there's just different versions of yourself that will exist at different points in your life. I think what's important is to accommodate those versions of yourself, because if you're evolving, your vision board has to evolve, and that's why you can't set it in stone. So some people revise their vision boards once a year, some do it once in 2 years, some do it once in 5 years. 5 years is a long time, because I'm like, there's so much changes that happen in 5 years. A year is also a lot. Like, I think about it that way, like so much happens in my life in a year, but I think a year is sensible. 2 years is sensible. So what's also interesting about these changes is you're not making big changes. You're just adjusting a few things, right? You're not making big changes to the bigger picture all the time. Because if you start changing your big picture every year, I just think that's lack of focus, right? If your big picture is consistently changing, I don't know. I just feel like there has to be a certain level of commitment to this is the journey that I'm on. And then the how I get there can be adjusted. But if you're consistently changing the big picture, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, just sit down and reflect more and figure out if, you have an actual big picture. So I think that's kind of everything I wanted to share with you guys about vision boards. Oh yeah, there's something I forgot, which is very, very important. So sometime, I think 3 weeks ago, I got to participate in this session with these other ladies. One was from Uganda and one was from South Africa. And they were basically doing these workshops where they were talking about inclusive collaboration and also participatory collaboration. It's very interesting. So basically what they did as one of the exercises is kind of like doing this life story workshop thingy. So what happened there was she basically gave us a blank sheet and said, pick 10 moments in your life that you feel are so important in telling your story. So basically saying pick 10 different incidents or 10 different moments in your life that you feel are very important in how you tell your story. And then when you look at those 10, then use them as how you tell your story to people, which is a very interesting exercise because she said it doesn't necessarily have to start when you're born. So you can choose to start when you're born if that's a significant moment in your life and something about it is important to, to kind of connect the dots. But she was basically saying that it can start from anywhere. It can start from yesterday, or it can start from 10 years ago. It can start from you just choose your starting point, right? And then also there doesn't have to be a certain chronology of, this year, next year, next year, next year. It doesn't have to look like that. If it does, that's okay, right? If that's how you want to frame your journal, that's how you want to tell your story. But basically what she was saying was you can pick moments that are years apart, or you can pick moments that are in the same year. And then just highlight the moment, highlight the year, and then or the month if it's in the same year, and then highlight why it's important as part of your storytelling. I loved that exercise so much because it was such a reflective, process. I sat down and I was like, okay, what's the story, Mantate? Where has the journey come from? Where is the journey going? So I started mine in 2015 and I ended it in 2025, and then I highlighted a couple of things that are important to me. I wish I had it somewhere I was going to show you guys, but I had this friend of mine from Uganda and she also just shared her story. So we got to be paired up and to, share our stories with the different people that, we got to be paired up with. And we were just talking about our journeys and we found, so much synergy in our stories, so much synergy in what we're passionate about. But what was also interesting was how just 10 moments in my life helped her to know me enough, for that moment to be able to say, oh wow, I understand your passion. I understand why you show up in this way every other day. And then for her as well, it was such a powerful moment because I got to see, this makes sense. This is the girl that you are. And now we're friends, which is so beautiful because that process helped us to be able to tell our stories in ways that I don't think we would have told them. And to just find ways, of, converging and just building a system. So I really, really love that exercise. But also I feel like it was some sort of evaluation. It's like an audit of your vision and your journey. It's like you're asking yourself, what has been the big moment? What has been the weakest moment? Because it wasn't just moments of growth and strength and milestones in the sense of successes. It was just a mix of things. It was, moments of grief and loss. It was moments of, success academically. It was moment of, finding out new people, finding out new places. It was just, different things. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? We just got to be able to see that life is not always about the milestones and the successes. It's also about, the things that we've gone through that have shaped us. And some of those things we don't actually see how they've shaped us until we start to sit and talk about them as part of our story. So I think it's such a powerful way of starting to reflect on your journey. And so if you're planning to do a vision board, this is an exciting exercise to do. You can do it on your own. You can do it with a couple of your friends. You can actually do it in a different space. You can have it as an exercise if you're a facilitator of workshops. So what that does is it allows you to just unpack what the journey is. And so when you get to the part of doing the vision board, then you've already kind of done, an exercise that helps you see oh, okay, I see where I've been at. I've seen what I've gotten right and what I've gotten wrong. So by the time you get to the vision board, it's easy to kind of pull it together, I think. And then if you're someone that's done a vision board before and you don't need this as a departure for your vision board, I do think that it's an exciting exercise to do still because it allows us to refine the way that we tell our stories. It also allows us to choose the aspect of ourselves that we want to tell in our stories. I think it's such a powerful communication tool. And I think in the conversation about storytelling is also, if you're someone that's not going to hide your vision board, like I said earlier, some people hide their vision boards. If you're not going to hide yours, it's also like your vision board has aspects of you that you want people to see. So that's another thing that happens in our heads, right? So as you create it, resist the temptation to create something that appeals to outsiders, because that vision is not for people outside, it's for you. So it's not just about creating something that people are going to see and be like, oh my god, that's so beautiful. It's not the beauty of something seen with the physical eye that's important. The beauty is in how it shapes your journey and who you become. So don't be tempted, to just project a certain aesthetic to people that does not align with the kind of work that you're going to put in. And then another lesson that I learned about vision board that I thought was very interesting, I wasn't sure when I saw it the first time if I agreed with it, but I also wasn't sure if I didn't agree with it. So I'm just going to tell you guys, you can decide on your own if you agree with it or you don't agree with it. But there was basically this girl on TikTok, and she was basically saying that when she does her vision board, she moves away from like certain ways of doing things. Like people just, the way that people do resolutions at the beginning of the year or the end of the year. So like she was saying that instead of like putting pictures of food or shoes or a phone or Paris or like the cliche vision boards, right? She was saying that I don't do that because I need to contextualize it to me. When I see a picture of a shoe, what does that shoe mean, right? Why am I putting a random shoe? This is a shoe from wherever that I might not actually be buying, unless it's a shoe where I'm like, I'm really buying this shoe, so I want it on my vision board. That makes sense. But what she was saying is move away from just getting aesthetic things that don't necessarily meet what you're trying to do. So instead of putting pictures of food, different types of food that you don't even eat or like be more intentional. If you're trying to increase maybe your vegetable intake, or you're trying to eat more, I don't know, whatever. She was saying that choose the things that you're trying to be specific. So she was basically saying be more specific with the things that you want to see. So instead of putting random foods, just put specific things. Or if it's difficult for you, you can just put words, and don't just put random words. Don't just put food. Don't put like healthy living. What does that even mean? So she was basically saying there's a lot of specificity that is needed in a lot of vision boards. And I think that particular point was very important. So as you put your vision board together, don't just take a picture of a particular person or just put a word. It's okay to have it, but it has to have a meaning, right? So you can actually put some notes to go with it. And she was basically saying that you can just write a couple of things that explain why that picture, or you can put something that will help you understand when you see it, to say, oh, this is why I put it there. But she was also saying like it moves us away from aesthetics to actually doing the work, because you put things that are a bit more practical. I'll try and look for a video because she explained it in a better way than I have. But I think the point she was just trying to make is everybody's vision boards look the same, but people are not actually doing what's on that vision board. You put a lot of things that you don't even eat. You put a lot of random places that you don't even want to visit. You just put just random things. I think the idea of it is, if the vision board is a map of where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do with your life, and then maybe specificity is a big part of how you frame that with the pictures that you put, with the words that you have. So I think that's the advice I would have with you guys, that of course you don't want like too much words in there unless you're using just words for it. Like I said earlier, that if you choose to write words, that's also just fine. But I think it's very important for us to always have context for everything, right? And also like just have at the back of our mind that if you don't put context, one day you just forget. You just look at your vision board and you don't even remember why you put something there. So I think that's kind of like everything that I would have wanted to share about vision boards. If I think of something else in the future, I will always send it to you guys as a short little clip or just a comment on one of my social media platforms. But I do hope that this was a useful kind of reflection for you. If you don't have a vision board already, I hope that this challenges you to think about having one. If you have one, I hope it's a great opportunity to just audit the process that you normally undertake, or the vision board that you have, or rethinking the purpose that you have for it, or the mindset that you've had around it. And also, if you're still someone that doesn't buy into this idea of vision boards, I think that's also cool. I think people have different ways of framing their story and where they're going. So if vision boards are not your thing, that's just fine. It doesn't mean that you're not focused. I think what's important is find your own way of writing down the vision. By writing down, it doesn't mean like taking a pen and writing it down or typing it. I think it's just thinking about, you need your vision somewhere. You need the bigger picture spelled out somewhere. It does give you a certain level of focus. It does give you a level of, commitment to something. It also allows you to break things down to, okay, I see the picture is this, but what are we doing right now to kind of just progress towards that? So I would say that even if you're not like a vision board person, it's still a good moment to reflect and think about, how do I, define my vision and how do I spell it out? And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the people that are not like vision board people. I mean, there are people that are, for instance, not, resolutions people. They don't do those, big resolutions at the beginning of the year. Some people do resolutions on their birthday. Some do them, in the middle of the year. Some don't do them. Like, I'm one of those people who, in the past, I used to have resolutions. I'm like, I'm going to go to gym every day. And then I stopped, because half the time I wouldn't do some of the things. And then when I didn't do the things, I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not, staying consistent. And then I would see people online talking about, oh, it's half year and I've done ABCD, and I'm just there like, okay. So one of the things then that I decided to do was to not do the the list of things that I'm gonna be doing that year, but to have themes. So for me, themes are a big thing, because I'm like, okay, my commitment this year is A, B, C, right? So if I have a theme, it means that all of the things I'm doing across that year are feeding into that theme. I feel like it changed my life. I started doing this over 4 years ago. It really changed my life, because I don't have the pressure for a checklist, right? And I'm also not feeling guilty for not being able to do something. I think having themes and like chunked commitments means that I'm able to do things that feed into this bigger picture of what I'm trying to, to be. Like, for instance, if one of my themes is peace in my friendships, relationships, and in my family life, in my work environments, that's the bigger picture. For me, peace can be the bigger picture, and then I break it down to like, what does that look like? And as a theme, I think it's useful because all of the other things are important. Setting boundaries, taking myself away from spaces that don't matter, creating space for good friendships, for new connection, those kind of things. So I'm not listing things. I'm just like, as I walk through the year, I'm figuring out different ways that I can feed into my bigger theme. And some of them can be just chill, like travel is one of my biggest themes. Every year, I just sit down and be like, okay, how are we doing on this theme? So most of my themes have stayed the same over the years. What has changed is like some of the things that kind of fit into it. So I think it's kind of like nicer in that way, because I don't have to work too much. Maybe it's just a part of me that's lazy. I don't know. But it does work, and I'm happy about it. So I think for those people that don't do vision boards, just think about it that way, that there's nothing wrong with not doing things the way that people do them. What's more important is just showing up every day and being able to define your vision in a way that you can reference, that you can hold yourself accountable for, but also in ways that someone else and other people that are important to you, that love you, that want to see you grow, can also hold you accountable. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that based on the fact that you enjoyed it, you're going to subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to build a community, but also beyond just subscribing, because subscriptions are nice. But remember to just, share this with someone that might actually benefit from it. But also comment, share your stories. Like I always say, that it's a reflection, it's a conversation with you. So I want you guys to tell me your own ways of doing, vision boards, what your experience with them has been, what are the lessons, what tips are you giving people. I think even a link from somewhere that could be useful, like if you have a link from TikTok, or a link to an article or whatever it is, that could be helpful for people, as they do their vision boards, or your own video, let's say when you're doing like a vision board and stuff that you think could be useful. That would be great. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me. I will see you guys next time. Bye.